Happy holidays, everyone, and welcome into Floyd Street's Finest, a Louisville basketball podcast, part of the Field of 68 Media Network. I'm your pal, Jeff Greer. I'll be hosting yet another fun show today. We've got a great guest coming on. It's the former Louisville assistant who worked under Denny Crum and Rick Pitino and is now the head coach going on 16 seasons, I believe, is the number now. Of the Bellarmine University men's basketball program in its first season in Division I, transitioning from D2, where it was a powerhouse program with a bunch of Final Fours, a national title, to its credit, and now ready to test its will and iron on the D1 level and the A-Sun, the Atlantic Sun, but they prefer to go by the A-Sun. It's Scotty Davenport, a legend here in Louisville. People love him for good reason. We'll talk to him about working with Denny Crum and Rick Pitino. We'll talk to him about Freedom Hall, and we'll talk to him, of course, about his program and how things are going as they make this move into Division I. Before we do that, before I welcome Scotty on, I just want to remind you, like your friendly neighborhood watch leader, or I don't know what that even means, but do me a favor. It's the holiday season. Everyone's being nice to each other. Go ahead and go onto your podcasting platform, wherever you get this podcast, however you're listening to it. And if you're listening to it on Twitter, go over to your podcasting platform and do me a favor. Subscribe to the podcast if you don't already, and rate and review it. That's the only way that we can keep building the Field of 68 Media Network. We have so many other great podcasts in addition to Louisville, covering Indiana, Kentucky, the schools down in Tobacco Road. There's national podcasts, too, covering the sport from the macro level. There's just so much good stuff. And the more you rate and review this program and tell your friends about it, the more recognition we can get from other people who haven't heard of us and get more subscribers. And we can do cooler stuff down the line, which we're hoping to continue to add to our already impressive arsenal of podcast hosts and, I guess, video if you're watching this via video. Anyway, all that out of the way, follow me on Twitter at Jeff Greer, where I will always be tweeting out these podcast episodes. And, of course, enjoy this episode with Scotty Davenport. All right, we are joined by a legend, Scotty Davenport. How are you, buddy?
I've been called a lot of things in my life by a lot of people. I've never been called a legend. You're way.
No. It's fitting. It's fitting. There. It works. How's life in D1? How are you doing these days?
It's an incredible time of the year because final exams are over. We just completed our 31st semester of a 3.0 plus GPA as a team. That's 31 straight. Wow.
That's pretty good.
And so that really it just puts a bow on that semester. And now with total access to the players and the excitement that, just think, today is December the 16th. Just think, in the last 12 days, you're a player at Bellarmine University. You just completed a semester. I don't care if you're a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. You played at Cameron Indoor Stadium against Coach K. Mm-hmm. 2 minutes to go in the half, 2 and change, you're down 3 points. 2 days later, 9 of our players had never been to Washington, D.C. You arrive and you get the first Division I victory in the history of your university.
It's pretty cool, yeah.
Okay, now on December the 9th, now you're running down the ramp in the facility that's hosted more NCAA Division I national championships in basketball than anywhere in history, in Freedom Hall. And the court is incredible. It's totally the court that is in Knights Hall that you practiced on all fall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a big semester.
Yes. And that happened in 12 days from today. So the enthusiasm is genuine. It's not, oh, I'm going to go in here and be excited because coach expects me to.
Mm-hmm.
And when you teach a class and the students are excited to be there and you're excited to teach them, you're going to have a heck of a day. I don't care if it's 24 third graders or a MBA class at Bellarmine. Well, that's practice every day. Now, total disclosure, it's not being able to be our team because of various contact tracing, et cetera. Mm-hmm. But Thursday, we're going to get closer. And it's being able to stay in contact with guys. And really what I've taken from a big picture is their true love for the game and their love for this university and their teammates. And that's special.
How much have you had a chance to kind of share your love? Because one of my favorite moments from Wednesday night's game on the 9th was standing with you before the game and just hearing you talk a little bit about going to that 1969 Final Four. How much have you had a chance to share just what Freedom Hall means to you, and probably to Doug also? For those who don't know, Doug is Scotty's son, an assistant in the program, worked for Xavier and Eastern Kentucky and Louisville, and is a Louisville kid also. Did you share kind of why that was so important to you to play at Freedom Hall with them?
Yes, I talked to them before we announced it, when the agreement was kind of reached, and I shared with them the vision, but I made sure that the players were well schooled on the history of Freedom Hall. And it's been such a team effort. Like Morgan Stanley here in Louisville and Tom Peroni and Will Wolford took our locker room and they transferred it out to Freedom Hall in terms of the nameplates on the lockers and the branding and the Kentucky Exposition Center people updating the paint scheme in the locker room to be Bellarmine's, not the old Louisville locker room. So I wanted those players to feel at home. And the people at the KEC, David Beck and his team have been extraordinary. But then other people that jump on, like Tom Peroni and Will Wolford, to make this happen. I have made sure that the players really understand the history of the facility. But the opportunity that exists to that is now your facility. It's yours. You bring up Doug. Well, Jeff, think of Doug. He was 8 years old. He's 33. Mm-hmm. So it's 25 years ago. We're talking about 1995, 1996. He was a ball boy there.
That's so cool.
I took a job at Louisville. He was a ball boy there. Mm. So how do you think a 33-year-old feels walking down that ramp? He was a ball boy there.
Yeah.
See, you brought that up. You're the first person to bring that up. But just everybody asks me how I feel. Well, how do you think my family feels? Mm-hmm. Russ and Doug were ball boys at Freedom Hall. Sharon went through, us living a dream and being named an assistant coach at Louisville, and then being retained, under Coach Crum, and then being retained by Coach Pitino. Think of her emotions the other night when she walked into Freedom.
Yeah, that's big time.
It doesn't just affect me. It doesn't. But I do want to convey that to these players where they really understand, and I give them credit. They do. They are like, they love it. They do. And good for them. They really embrace basketball.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can tell that they have that fire and that passion. And for people who don't know, I mean, Bellarmine's program, it just always seems like you guys develop that culture really well, that there's a lot of mutual respect, that the kids enjoy playing at Bellarmine, the way you guys play. It's just kind of fun to follow that. I'm curious to ask you also, so one of my other favorite anecdotes was when you guys first found out that you were switching to Division I, that you're going to make that transition, you pulled out your notepad and wrote down all these people's names that you wanted to call. I'm certain that Denny Crum was on that list. What have you had a chance to talk to him since then about playing Freedom Hall and just making this move, or?
We actually talked face to face. We were at a benefit right before the pandemic and all that. We were all there, and Freedom Hall wasn't yet into play.
Gotcha.
But the transfer was, and actually, Jeff, one of my great plans was when we announced we were going to open our first Division I game ever would be in Poly Pavilion. Even during the pandemic, my vision was to have Coach Crum come to Bellarmine's campus and to speak with our players about Poly Pavilion. I mean, he's a former UCLA coach. I mean, he's a UCLA guy, true and true. And who better to educate them on the history and the pride of Poly Pavilion than Coach Crum? And then, the game gets moved to next year. But I sure hope we can do that in the future, without a doubt. I mean, I know Mick Cronin and I talk all the time, and I know the pride he's grown in believing in UCLA, but he's got a long way to go to catch up to Coach Crum.
So what is your schedule going to look like for next year? Do you have any idea yet what you might be able to get onto it?
Well, we've been led to believe that we will get a return game at Cameron Indoor with fans.
Nice.
And they were incredible. John Jackson, Nolan Smith, Coach K. There's no words to describe how classy they were in the scheduling process. The Mississippi State game that was scheduled will not be rescheduled. I believe the Gonzaga UCLA game are going to be they're going to be rescheduled. Okay. We will attempt to schedule them together on the same trip. This year, as we were putting the schedule down, it was going to be UCLA first and then Gonzaga right before Christmas. We believe those will be on the same trip. Based on it makes sense. When we were putting this schedule together, we didn't have that luxury. Now we do. So we know that, and we will try to continue to branch out. We were also canceled at Dayton, which, last year was going to be a number 1 seed.
Yeah.
It sure looked like it. And it's a very close game. So we will continue to, through relationships, cultivate the scheduling. Obviously, that it helps in recruiting, it helps you in financially, and it helps your university. But the first people, and always first, the excitement of the players.
All right, so I got to ask you, and I've been vouching for this for years. I don't know if you remember me doing this in the Courier Journal or not, but I wrote a few years ago how desperate this area, we'll call it Kentuckiana because we're right across the river from Indiana. We've got to get some kind of regional event, and we can get the big boys, Kentucky and Louisville and Indiana, and we can get the Murray States and the Bellarmines and the Eastern Kentuckys. We got to get them all under one roof, 8 teams, maybe have a couple play-in games if you want to call them that, preliminary rounds. Just get everybody in one place because we got to see Bellarmine. We got to see you guys play Louisville and Kentucky and all those teams.
I vote yes.
Okay, good. I got one key vote.
I remember your piece in the Courier, but at that point, we didn't have a kind of a seat at the table.
That's true. Yeah, it would have been now, considered an exhibition.
No, but I remember reading your vision and thinking, boy, he is on now. Now, Jeff, here's where my take on that is now. First and foremost, it helps the game of college basketball. Period. It does. So that should supersede every argument. Second, I think it helps all the communities involved, be it Lexington, be it Murray, Northern Kentucky, Moorhead, Eastern, Louisville. I think it helps all the communities. And right now, more so maybe I know in your history, not in mine. I lived through, civil unrest back in the 60s and the busing in the 70s. But I know what sports can do and how we could bring together this community. Could you imagine, Jeff, 23,000, 22 and change in the Yum Center of first responders, teachers, these health professionals, and all these, the doctors, the technicians, the nurses, the surgeons, you name it. What about community centers? And you put a rear end in every single seat. Well, I don't know any device that can bring them together better than athletics, and specifically college basketball. Was it 17, 18 straight years we're the number one market in college basketball?
Yeah.
Okay. Then what better way? And let them. It's just good for the game.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically, it's good for the community, and the players would just love it.
Oh, and there's no question about that.
You had a vision. You had a vision. I vote yes.
Okay. Well, I'm excited. All right. So I got one vote. I just got to make a few more phone calls. I'll get AW. I'll get Chris. I'll get Cal. I'll get them all to sign up.
You know, you think of the people that just think of teachers through what we've had to go through. Mm-hmm. Think of the community centers that play such a vital role. Mm-hmm. You know, our first responders, our police, our EMTs, our firefighters. What about our military? What about our veterans? I mean, I can go on and on and on. That this would be beneficial to become a celebration around the one thing that unites this area of the country better than any area in the country. I'll take on the Tobacco Road Group. I'll take them on with Kentuckiana and college basketball. I will.
Yeah, it's pretty serious around here. I've learned that over the last 7 years. It's even more serious than I think I thought it was coming into this region. So that's for sure. So tell me how has this gone as far as how has the D1 transition gone as far as preparing and having your guys ready to go? Is it any different once you get down to the brass tacks of preparing for games?
Well, the two biggest transition issues, number one, recruiting. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't the type of players we recruited. Nothing changed. It was who we were recruiting against. Mm-hmm. That changed. But we still will base our future on the biggest lost art in college basketball, and that's the ability to judge talent. And we had 3 young men sign in November. Ben Johnson, who's going to become the all-time leading scorer in the city of Lexington basketball history. And it was amazing. And he committed a year ago in January. And a young man, Kurt Hoff, from Ferdinand, Indiana, who as a freshman and sophomore, it's Indiana, Purdue, and Illinois, and Evansville, and Notre Dame. It's all the Midwest schools. Because he led his team to a state championship final game as a freshman. As a sophomore, they were not quite as good. They had lost some players. And then his junior year, he's ruled ineligible because he transferred schools. And then the pandemic hits, so nobody – and we stayed the course. Mm-hmm. And he signs with us. And he's a 6'9", inside, outside basketball player. Mm-hmm. And we took a young man, Aiden Mudd, from St. X here, you know, who's going to be a non-scholarship player, but he's on our basketball team. Mm-hmm. Well, that's the key. Number 2, the biggest issue was facilities. Actually, that happened first to get the recruits, and that was Dr. Lynn and Mrs. Lynn doing the facility. Tom Conway, a pillar of this community, son ran for governor, Jack Conway. He refurbished our entire offices. We even expanded. Then when you start talking about the basketball, well, the first lesson you ever learn in coaching is there's more than one way to be successful. Mm-hmm. We haven't changed our way. The way we play, offensively, defensively, the way we scout, the way we prepare, the way we teach, nothing's changed. Our competition is different, just as our competition is different in recruiting. But the vision has been incredibly exciting. And the key was this staff was Doug and Bo and Al, you know, Bo Braden, Al Davis, Scooter Galloway, getting these 3 players signed, and now we move forward. Because it established credibility. Mm-hmm. And it's incredibly, it's exciting, it's difficult, it's challenging, but I know this, the players enjoy the journey. And like the first win against Howard University, that Sunday night was not a destination. It was an achievement.
Mm-hmm.
4 days later, we lose in Freedom Hall, our first home game against an undefeated Chattanooga team. And my highlight of that night was the disappointment in the locker room. Now, I don't like seeing our players hurting,
mm-hmm.
but they were hurting. But there was not the win of the night was their encouragement,
Mm-hmm.
because they said, man, we can do this. Hey, let's face it, there's some uncertainty. We went from Duke to Howard. That's a pretty wide range.
Yeah.
You know, we got beat 22. We won by 21.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Big
we don't
swing.
think the 22-point game should have been 22, but, you know, it happens.
Mm-hmm.
That's not important. We play an undefeated team that hits 17 threes. They have
Program record. That's a program record.
Program
17
record.
threes.
Incredible night. But they were undefeated. You give them credit. But the last three players in the locker room, Justin Betts, Dylan Penn, Pedro Bradshaw, were incredibly distraught. But they were so encouraged. They can't wait to get back in the gym because, Coach, we can do this.
Mm-hmm.
Coach, we felt like we really can play our way and be successful. So let's go. Let's go. You know, we run into some COVID issues with playing at Morgan State, but Saturday night we're going to play in iconic Freedom Hall, taking on a Middle Tennessee team. Just think. Now, Jeff, I'm trying to just be straight. This will air when?
Sometime this week. So this will be before you guys play on Saturday night.
Okay, let's think of a Saturday in Louisville, Kentucky. You have IU Butler at 11:30. You have Louisville, Wisconsin, 2:00. You have Kentucky, UCLA at 4.
Precipitation has been detected near your location.
And you have Bellarmine, Middle Tennessee at 7:00 in Freedom Hall with concessions now, let me add.
That's a big one.
and what a Saturday before Christmas that is.
Yeah, that's big time.
And the cavalry arrived on Sunday with the vaccines being distributed right out of here of the world hub for UPS.
Mm-hmm.
What a week now. You got Butler, Indiana, 11:30, Louisville, Wisconsin, 12, UCLA, Kentucky, 2:00. Establishments are open, restaurants, bars to 50%. You got time to grab a meal, take care of our local people. And it's 7:00, Freedom Hall, Bellarmine, Middle Tennessee. And then Christmas the following Friday. That's a heck of a Saturday, right?
That's a big Saturday. That's a nice little Saturday. I like that. Well, I'll ask you two more things. I know you got to get out to practice here. Let's see. All right. So I got to get you out of here. I want to ask you two more things. One is I'm always so curious about this, and I've had a lot of conversations with my fellow writer/broadcaster friends who follow college basketball, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. So college basketball, the game has evolved so much that everybody shoots a lot of threes now. Most people shoot a lot of threes. It's gotten to the point where teams like San Diego State really do a nice job of basically defending everything but the three, and they say, go ahead and beat us, because so many places try to shoot a lot of threes, but they're not actually good at shooting threes, which kind of shoots yourself in the foot. But Bellarmine has consistently been one of the best three-point shooting programs, no matter what level, over the last 5, 10, 15 years, around 40%. So I wanted to ask you, how do you evaluate a true shooter versus a scorer who could get going from three but is not going to be that same consistent shooting presence?
Well, and I know you're new to, and we're so fortunate to have you.
Mm-hmm.
On our team with the ESPN Plus broadcast. We are so fortunate. We really are, Jeff.
I'm excited too.
This will, and the job you did was absolutely astounding.
Thank you. I
Well,
appreciate that.
this is the misnomer of Bellarmine basketball. So 6 of the last 10 years in Division II, we led the nation in field goal percentage.
Mm-hmm.
In 3 of the remaining 4 years, we were in the top 6. So in 9 of the last 10 years, we've been at the top of field goal percentage in the nation. 2 of those years, we led the world. We went to the EuroLeague, the NBA, Division 1, 2, 3, JUCO. We went NAI. We said we led the world. Well, everybody thinks you got a bunch of guys just stand out there and shoot threes.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the outlier. Last year in a 14-team league in the Great Lakes Valley Conference, we were 7th in threes attempted. So it's not how many, it's the percentage you shoot.
Right.
Because if you're going to shoot a high percentage, as long as there's been the game, as long as since Dr. Naismith invented the game, common sense tells you the closer you can shoot, the more you're going to make.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the one thing, and you're right, your point is 100% accurate. The game has evolved to the three-point line. Did it moving back a foot change it? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of percentage, not in terms of percentage of attempts.
Mm-hmm.
It did. But here's the one change, is balance wins basketball games.
Mm-hmm.
It always has. You bring up San Diego State as a great defensive philosophy viewpoint, but balance wins. I don't think you can be one-dimensional and shoot all threes or shoot all inside or give up no twos and give up all threes. I don't think you can win at the highest level without balance. Mm-hmm. And I think that's been true in the history of college basketball. I do. Inside, outside play. Now, if you break the NBA numbers down, and we do this, and the NBA analytics are phenomenal. But like what the NBA shoots off one dribble versus no dribble and catch and shoot. Mm-hmm. Those percentages are mind-boggling. That's the greatest 360 players in the world.
Of course, yeah.
So you learn from the best, but we're always going to stress balance here. And I think you'll see as college basketball continues to evolve, it's still going to be the most balanced teams inside, outside that win at the highest level.
For sure. I think that's the best approach. Stay the course, keep doing your thing. It's clearly worked for you guys. The last thing I want to ask, and this is red meat for Louisville fans, so I got to feed them a little bit. You got to tell me, what was your first week working for Rick Pitino like? What sticks out from that experience?
Okay. So here's what happens. Coach Pitino is hired. And there is a community welcoming celebration down at the International Convention Center. I've got the team there. I've gone and reserved a room. Tom Jurich had told me as coach. Now, can you hear that?
Yeah.
My phone's ringing with one shining moment.
I love it. That's great.
As you bring up Rick Pitino, my phone is ringing with one shining moment. We couldn't script. Now you tell me anybody can script it.
That's about as good as it gets, Scotty. That's perfect.
Okay. So I had, Mr. Jurich had told me, he said, Coach, and Coach Crumb's going to retire. He said, take care of these players. And I mean, literally 20 hours a day, Jeff. My office was open. Ellis Miles, Larry Open. I mean, no, we hadn't signed yet. Ellis Miles, you go on and on and on. I was in there for those guys. Mm-hmm. I was going to be there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for those kids. Coach Pitino's hired. They had the community welcoming down at the International Convention Center. I've got all the players there. I had a room, a private room reserved where he could meet with the players if he so desired. I had not spoken to him. You got to understand now, my reference point to him right then is, number one, I met him when he was Kentucky's coach because he recruited DeJuan Wheat when I was at Louisville. Mm-hmm. Then number two, he's Kentucky's coach and I'm coaching at Louisville now, not Ballard, and he's the bitter rival.
Yeah.
So you got to understand. Okay. I mean, you know where I'm going now. So yeah. I've got this room ready, and he says, hey, Scotty, how you doing? Good to see you. I said, Coach, congratulations. Are the players here? I said, yes, sir, they are. He said, I'd like to meet with them. I said, well, they're in a room, Coach, right here. I take him around the room, and he said, I want to meet with them privately. You can step outside. Now, what do you think was going through my mind?
Lord knows at that point.
Well, your career just ended at Louisville.
Yeah.
Okay. So I closed the door, and he has the celebration. I'm the last to leave the place, Ray Ganong and I drove Coach Ganong home. And he said, I'm going to say something to you. He said, I don't know what will happen with me, but if anybody on this staff deserves to stay, you do. And I said, well, Coach Ganong, that's very nice of you, but it doesn't look like it. Mm-hmm. So in the next 2 weeks, he starts assembling his staff. He brings in Kevin Willard. He brings in Jeff Noyes, who was his personal assistant with the Celtics. He brings in, Fred Hina. And he goes, do you know Mick Cronin? I said, yeah, he was at Cincinnati. I said, I know of him because he coached high school at Woodward when I was at Ballard. Well, all of a sudden one morning, we've got individual instruction at 7:30. We're on the court. And I'm there. I've got the players on the court at 6:45. I've got them warming them up. I'm not on the staff. I don't know who's going to be. He comes in and says, Scotty, step into the coach's locker room. Cardinal Arena. We go in the coach's locker room. Now, what are you thinking? Well, this is it. Mm-hmm. This is it. Walks in and he goes up. I've never kept a coach from a previous staff in my life. Nowhere. The Knicks, Providence, Celtics, Boston, never. Kentucky. And I looked at him and I said, yes, sir. I'm aware of that. And he lost his momentum. He goes, what do you mean you're aware of that? And he goes, I said, Coach, you're at Kentucky. I'm at Louisville. I've read every book. You're the bitter rival. I've read every book. I've listened to every speech. I said, I know everything. He started laughing, like really laughing. And he said, but I'm keeping you.
Wow.
And he said, don't tell anyone. You can tell your family, but I'll announce it next week. So we go out. We go through individual instruction. We walk up the 3 flights of stairs. We get to the top of the stairs, Jeff. And he turns to me to tell you how thorough Coach Pitino is. He turns to me and he said, Scott, he said, your 2 sons, how old are they? 9 and 10, 9 and 11. I said, they're 8 and 10. He said, and when you lost your father, how old were you? You were 8. Were you 8 or 9 when your dad died? And I said, I was 9, Coach. It was Halloween day, 1:15 in the afternoon. I was 9. And I'm thinking, what is he doing? Mm-hmm. And he goes, I want you to go see Coach Ganong today because you can't look like that and work for me. You can't, you don't have any stamina. Mm-hmm. And he said, how'd your dad die? I said, massive heart attack, 15 feet from me. He said, name me one thing you ever saw, your dad ever saw you do. Name me one thing. You were 9. He never saw you play a junior high basketball game. He never saw you play in high school, graduate from high school. He never saw you graduate from college, get married, or start a family. He never saw you do one thing in your life. He said, get yourself in shape so you get to experience Russ and Doug and the things that your dad never got to see you do. I walked down those steps. I met with Coach Ganong. He did my full body comps. And 1 year to the day, I lost 79 pounds.
Wow. 79? That's crazy.
In 1 year.
Good Lord.
And now I've lived to see Russ and Doug both graduate college, both have master's degrees, both have married. Doug has a granddog, Charlie Brown. Russ has a beautiful our granddaughter, Ren Elizabeth. And he, how thorough was he, Jeff, that he knew all that?
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
So when you ask about my first weeks, so that very day, we go recruiting, and we're driving to a junior college, to Wabash Junior College. Mm-hmm. And halfway there, Antoine Barber was the kid. He's from Elizabethtown, Kentucky. He turns to me and said, there was a large faction of people didn't want me to retain you. And I looked at him. I'm like, I thought people liked me. And I said, what? He goes, there was a large number of people in this community that thought I was making a mistake if I retained you. He said, you want to know why? I said, yes, sir. He said, they told me you were so loyal to Coach Crum that I was making a mistake. And I looked him in the eye and said, no, you're wrong. He will be that loyal to me. And I'm proud to this moment I have been every second. But, who knows that day how that changed my life.
Yeah.
Physically, mentally. Now, working for him, it's there's no words to describe it.
Yeah. Pretty
There's
intense.
no words. But to see it, but, you know, Jeff, you asked like the first 10 days, et cetera. Well, let's fast forward to 05, winning the regional and going to the Final Four in Albuquerque. We get to the airport. They had given our plane away. It was a charter. It's a long story. But anyway, we had to bring another plane in, so we're kind of delayed. They wanted us to wait in a hangar because we've got 300 some odd people from the university, the band, the cheerleaders, it's everybody. And I'll never forget him saying, I saw an old Charlie's. Let's go back there. And you know, Vinny's running everything, says, well, Coach, they don't know we're coming. We didn't make any arrangements. All the food's on the plane. He goes, I'll handle it. He's going to handle it. He just won. He's the first coach just to take the third school to the Final Four in history. We go back to an old Charlie's. He walks in there and said, all right, I got 32, and I need just put them in 4 here and 6 over there and 2. He's like a maitre d', put 2 over here, and we'll do it. Well, anyway, so we all get seated. It's Kevin Willard, Julie, his wife, Sharon and I, Vince Taylor, Fred Hina, and Gina are at this table with Coach. Some of the other family members and all that were already at the airport, it's just that's who's there. I'll never forget, Jeff. He had pushed us so hard. And on that night, he was a proud dad.
Yeah.
He was so proud because it was like, I have pushed you all to the brink. And now we're all going to go to the Final Four together. I'll never forget any minute of that night in my life. I mean, I get emotional to talk about it. It was like, I've pushed you all, but I told you it's worth it, and we're going to the Final Four. And he was like a proud mentor, a proud father. And Kevin Willard and I talk about it to this day. We did.
That's great. That's great.
Fred Heat and I talk about it to this day.
I love it. I love it. That's great. There you go. That's a nice memory. Well, there is nobody better in the city of Louisville to talk about all of the history of this college basketball town and all the stuff that you've experienced. So I really appreciate it. I know, let's see, we're running. Oh man, I've run you over. You got to get to your individuals. But we will be seeing you this weekend, and best of luck. And you know, I love talking to you every chance I get. So I really appreciate you taking the time.
Jeff, you're a pro. We appreciate everything, man. Have fun. Keep it up. Thank you. Hey, I'm honored for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Okay. See you, Scotty. Thanks.